And here comes Milwaukee. Forbes another three. Oh, no! This is the Random Scrub Heap Podcast.
Welcome to, I don't know, is it the third or the fourth episode of the season of the Random Scrub Heap Podcast? Third. Harry says three, so I'm going to roll with that. I haven't fact-checked. I don't need to. I don't want to. The Miami Heat, the Mid-Ami Heat, have just snapped their losing streak after blowing a 25-point lead to the Orlando Magic that we're not going to discuss tonight because that's old news. We're talking about new news, and they just beat the Brooklyn Nets by 15. A very, dare I say, entertaining game. I don't know, but I have Hot Take Harry. I have the Thunder from Down Under George, and no Royal this time. I was going to say something that I might have regretted. We're only white people on this podcast tonight. I'll just say it like that. I was going to say something different, but it could have been misconstrued. It's funny. Harry actually is the one that donned the signal, set the bat signal in the air and said, "Hey, let's pod." And I was, color me surprised. I didn't see that one coming, but Harry sent us some pod topics he wanted to talk about. And the first one genuinely just made me chuckle. It said, what are they doing? Was just no context or anything. Harry said, what's this? Talk about this topic. What are they doing? So without further ado, I'm just going to give Harry the floor for a second. Harry, what are they doing?
All right. So two things I wanted to discuss and why I brought that up. So one, I didn't really watch the game live against the Magic on Saturday night, but I was distraught. That could arguably be the worst loss in NBA history. Here's the stat, LJ, George. There have been 796 previous instances in NBA history where a team was up by 22 or more points going into the fourth quarter. 796. Those teams were undefeated. 796-0. No team has ever lost being up by that much going to the fourth quarter. So lo and behold, the Miami Heat Saturday night become the first team to blow a game like that. Not just blowing the game. I don't really care who they had out there. Blew a nice effort from Khalil Ware, who obviously Spo has some weird issue playing because he had a nice game. Against the Magic's C team, D team, whatever you guys want to call it. They suffered another injury. One of the Wagner brothers got hurt. So it's just that was part of the topic. The other part is, and I'm sure we'll get more into it. What is this team doing, guys? If we're being logical, the Heat are going to most likely end up paying the tax again this year. They're not going to pay the repeater, which means they have to stay out of the tax the next 2 years. And the only way to do that, based on where they are now, without using picks to dump guys, is letting Jimmy walk for free. And if the plan is simply to compete, even though we know they're not anywhere near the class of the East or the other teams that are going to compete out West, what are you keeping Jimmy around for if you're eventually just going to let him walk? I don't think they're going to. And even if he opted in or something, it's going to be much harder to find a deal in the offseason to find expiring contracts or ways to dip under the tax next year, right? So just logically, I do not think there's any way they're paying the tax next year and becoming a repeater team. That's a very punitive tax measure, and I don't think that's going to happen. So if that's the plan and they're going to avoid the tax next year, why aren't we trying to figure this out now? And figure it out is a short-term tank. Could literally be just this year, simply to right the ship and figure it out. This is a good year to have the draft pick. This would be a great year for them to miss the playoffs. And that should be the plan. Trading Jimmy would help do that. It would allow them to take back the contracts that make sense for them. For example, I'm just throwing this out here. This is not, I don't know. If they wanted to send Jimmy to Houston, taking back Fred VanVleet's contract is perfect. He's a team option for next year. You can get that off the books or whatever they want to do. It's flexible, basically 1-year contract. this team is toast. Even when Jimmy's playing, Jimmy had that unbelievable. What was the game they lost where he had the big triple double? That was the Detroit game, right?
Yeah, it was in Detroit. He had the second best regular season game of his entire career, and his best regular season game in a Miami uniform, and they lost. And they needed Tyler Hero heroics for him to pull it out the ass just to get him to overtime. Then they go up by 8 in overtime. Went for Tim Hardaway Jr. in front of his homosexual hating father.
I know.
Like, it's just George's face says it all too. I don't think George knew that.
I don't even know where the fuck that came from.
You have to be chronically online, but you also have to know that Tim Hardaway's dad is homophobic. But outside of that, for that to happen in that setting was just like, all right, you had all those things go right. You had Jimmy do that, and you still lose. Middling.
I think that's like the best way to describe it, though. Like, you say middling, you say mid. You say that we need to get, like, they're not going to pay the tax. They're not going to move Jimmy. At the end of the day, you can't have it every way. That's the fate of your scenario right now. You can't have it every way. You can't keep Jimmy into the end of the year losing for nothing. It's bad practice. It's bad business. It's bad. It should be against whatever the bylaws are for any successful franchise. If you know you're not going to pay a player, you know that these players are like, you're happy for them to go because they've got nowhere else to go after that. If you don't think Jimmy Butler is petty enough to say, I will go sign a 1-year deal with the Brooklyn Nets and then ask to be traded halfway through, he's petty enough to do that. He will not be signing another contract in Miami Heat unless it comes from Pat Riley to him in the next, like, how many months that we have? It's not going to happen. He will not be hitting free agency and then signing another deal here unless it's already pre-established or predetermined that that's the case. Now, Houston's like the dream scenario. They've got picks, they've got young talent, and they've got abiding contracts. Those those tax abiding contracts that are like 1-year deals are great. Dallas doesn't really have anything of that. They're out of the race. Golden State will just chuck shit at the wall and see what sticks. They probably don't have the best package either.
Well, technically they do, because Phoenix is just constantly like playing the card of, hey, my buddy over there thinks you're cute, and then the camera pans over to just the ugliest fucking person you've ever seen in your life. Like, no one wants Bradley Beal. No one wants him. The Heat didn't want him when they could have had him.
That contract is so much worse than people think.
It's way worse, because at least he was putting up numbers in Washington. He just sucks in Phoenix. And they're like, hey, my buddy over there
he's shooting 50% from the field right now and averaging like 18 points a game. So it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, you're not taking. What is the point? In any worst case scenario, due to their current tax resources, and then what's ideal for what Miami and what's also just not going to happen is that Bradley Beal is included in that trade. Now, the only other logical fucking reason, the only other logical thing that happens there is if we package to go get Devin Booker from them. Now, is that realistic from the Phoenix Suns? Absolutely not. So that is your entire case in point. We will not be accepting Bradley Beal, and you will not be giving us Devin Booker. So goodbye.
Well, technically they could make Kevin Durant work, but there's no report out anywhere that he's interested in leaving.
His contract doesn't.
No, they could financially make something work for Kevin Durant, but they're not going. Why would you trade?
For Kevin, but they're not going to trade.
Exactly. Why would you get rid of Kevin Durant to add Jimmy Butler?
It's a sideways move, and it's also a backwards move if you think about it.
Your defense gets a little better, your offense gets worse. It's like
I don't see a situation in which Phoenix works out. I like Houston. I don't mind the Golden State package. I've already sang my praises about Kuminga. I think he's in a situation where he doesn't have any sort of like. Yeah, he puts individual stats up. Yeah, he takes some pretty shit shots, but we've also had a history of players that take really shit shots that now shoot the ball really well. So, like, I'm okay with that. I think the picks are the most important thing. Yeah, as the Miami Heat, you don't like picks, you don't like rebuilding. Don't think about the picks as an investment into your future via the draft. Think of it as an investment in your future via the trade market, in which the Miami Heat love to do work. Get your picks, get your ammo, reinforce your barricades with contracts that work. Get yourself into a tax situation where you can make those trades, and then go from there. It really is not rocket science. And I think at the end of the day, I'm guilty of giving too much credit where credit is not due. You know, I look at the Miami Heat front office, and over the last 15, 20 years, you know, however long I've been watching this team for, like no matter how you look at it, I look at that front office as like immortal and like unbelievably great at the job and can do no wrong. I think I've given them too much credit. I'm not calling them bad. I'm not calling them bad by any measure, but I think I've given them too much credit. I think they're over sentimental. I think their values are miscued. I think that where they're heading now is just asking for more trouble than you can hope for. So, at what point do we sit here and say that they're the problem? That's the biggest problem there. Not the fact that the team's unhealthy, not whatever situation crap that you wanted to. There was an interesting post. I forget exactly who posted it. It might have been 5 on the floor. They said that this Miami Heat approach, based on the sentimental value of the way we do work, has helped one person and one person only. It's Tyler Hero. Growing from the inside, Tyler Hero and Drew Smith are the only two beneficiaries of that sort of thing. Maybe Gabe Vincent for a while as well, but we ended up dealing him too. Or he left for free. I forget which one the category that guy falls into at this point in time. But you look at that situation, yeah, Tyler had to have had some sort of a better year, because instead of replacing him or giving him any sort of competition, you've given him free pass after free pass after free pass. And there has to be the straw that breaks the camel's back at one point. Yeah, now he's playing great. But I've always been an advocate, and I will still forever be an advocate of trading at the high point. Getting out of the game.
You're looking at the high point right now.
Yeah, exactly right.
He's been phenomenal. To your credit, George, him and Drew Smith are the only people that look like they ever want to play basketball. Because I don't know what's happened to Bam. He had a good game tonight, but it's been so wishy-washy. But I'm glad you brought attention.
I feel bad for Bam, though. I feel genuinely bad for Bam. He has had to kill himself, kill his game, kill everything, every part of him that has a competitive edge for wanting to be the best, to wanting just to win. Now,
I wouldn't even go that far. He doesn't have that killer edge. He does not have it.
It's been robbed of him, though, because
he's never had it. He's never shown it in his entire career. No.
Yes, he has. When he had that triple-double against Brooklyn a few years ago, where he just
the one game where everyone was out and he had to fucking shoot.
Yeah,
that game.
Exactly. Yeah,
let's see it when the people are healthy. He doesn't do it.
He wants to take that next step. It's not that he doesn't
there's
want
no
to.
next step to take. He's 27.
Yeah, but
it's been the same bullshit for almost a decade.
He's regressed because of the way that the front office has treated this team, the way that Spo has run this offense.
Those two things are definitely true, but the same, like the outcome is unaffected. He's not the guy.
You're both right. Because I don't think the front office has ever put Bam in a good spot to really be the guy that I think he can be. And at the same time, I think we've seen his limitations, and he really does not like being the guy. I don't think you're ever winning with Bam as your top 2 like scoring option or creator or whatever.
And and with that contract, to give someone that contract, you need them to be able to win a championship as either 1A, 1B, or just number 2.
Well, that's it. But
can't.
Yeah, but so that's a separate discussion, because the NBA has done this stupid thing where the cap's so restrictive.
Right.
You're not going to sign anybody from free agency. You have to make your own money from your team, and then you have to max out your homegrown stars. So there would be no reason for the Heat to not give Bam that contract. But at the same time, if you're looking at the scheme of what it means and how to build a team, is that contract also going to hinder them from, ever being able to compete? And the answer is probably yes. So
the Heat are the only organization in the NBA that has to deal with that too. There's so many others that are now going to be faced that same problem.
Like I thought, there's been George. There's been suggestions over the years that like maybe you do something where if they're a guy you draft, like you'd pay them the max of whatever that number is, but that would go on the books at like X percentage because they were a homegrown guy, like something like that, where you're incentivizing the team to keep their own guy, but you're also giving them the benefit of the doubt, which would help with they're always worried about small markets. Like that's a way to do it where you can build, you're helping the small market team, and you're rewarding them for drafting well. Like that would make sense. Right now, essentially, like you guys are talking about Phoenix, they have 3 max guys, they're fucked. The Heat are paying 2 max guys in Jimmy and Bam, and then they're overpaying other guys on the roster. Fucked. If you're not,
to put it nicely,
if you're not the Celtics, which is just like built the team first and then started paying everybody. So now they are in some trouble if they suddenly don't, like, if they can't win as constructed, but we kind of know they can because they did, and they are going to be competing again. So like that's the way to do it. You build it. You get 2 young guys that are not a lot of money. You add talent around them. You make the right trades, and then you start paying everybody. In my opinion, we'll see if I'm wrong. And you guys know how I feel. I've made this clear on like Twitter, Blue Sky, wherever. I don't like Sam Presti. While the Thunder team is fun to watch, they're great defensively. They have a ton of pieces. They kicked our ass in that game. I know it was close, but they're just. It's going to be very tough to beat. A team like the Thunder, as currently constructed in the series. What are they doing extending all these other guys? Like,
and don't they have like 4 or 5 picks in this upcoming like amazing draft?
Unless there's a big trade, a big swing that I'm missing that Presti's going to do, like, why are you giving Alex Caruso $20 million a season? That doesn't make any sense. He's a great player at $10 million. I wanted him for the Heat. He's a great, like, plug him in, 7th man off the bench player, great defense, hustle guy, whatever. That $20 million, like, now what are you doing? And I don't know what you guys think about all this stuff. But
I think that they're just positioning themselves for that big hitter. At the end of the day, you don't have many contracts on the book, like, without attaching 3 or 4 guys. They can make the money work. The situation is clear to me. I think that they're going to swing the doors down this offseason for players like Giannis, for players like Bam Adebayo. That is their position. You need contracts of that magnitude. I'm looking at it now. You got Lou Dort at $16.5 million this season. Good contract. Very movable, especially in today's current climate. You've got Isaiah Joe at $13 million. I see that, and it's a front-loaded contract. You've got Aaron Wiggins at $10 million. That's a negative gearing contract as well. You've got Kendrick Williams at 6. You've got Casey Wallace at 5. You've got Deng at 5. Topic at 4.5 plays a rookie deal, but like you see what I'm saying. They've got Jalen Williams at a $4.5 million team option.
So George, my counterpoint is this, right? So essentially, they're gonna have to start paying their great guys. So like Jalen Williams is gonna be up for a big extension. He's hurt, right? The big guy, his name just escaped me, but Chet's gonna be up for that extension, I believe, probably next summer or whatever. Like they can start talking extension, not that he's there yet. My thought is Alex Caruso on an expiring $10 million deal is awesome. Alex Caruso on a 4-year, $80 million deal is horrendous. And
that's going to be hard to move too. You can't just.
I don't know if a team is going to be like, that's awesome. Like, yes, for years they did need the big contract, so I could have understood that move 2 years ago. And then, Caruso's got 2 years left on his deal for 40. But 4 for 80, he's not being moved. I mean, at least I don't really see where that's going to work out for someone. Like, even if Giannis wanted out, Milwaukee's not like, bring that contract on. If Milwaukee ever moved Giannis, they're like, give us 5 picks, give us 2 expirings, and give us your best young guys, and we can have a discussion. Like, I'm a bit confused. George, like, write this down. We can talk in 5 years. Like, let me know if I'm really wrong. I just don't see that.
It's not that I think you're wrong. No, I see what you're saying. I just think it's a little bit short-sighted for what I'm thinking at the same time. And I might just be going off the rails here, but at the same time, you still do need those contracts to make that money work. Now, the most valuable thing on the trade market will forever be picks. Picks are the commodity of the future of your franchise, because you can do what the Miami does. You can go through the trade market and redistribute those picks. You can go through the draft and build like other teams did, like the Celtics did. But I look at this team, at that OKC team, and I'm saying to myself, okay, you need to make up that salary for Giannis. Now, is Milwaukee going to call off the deal because Caruso's the one making up that money at $20 million a year, but they're getting 5 first-round picks? Absolutely not. They will take on that money for 3 extra years after that deal, or 4 years. I don't give a shit. They will take that money on if it means you're getting the boatload of picks. It might be closer to 7. It might be 6 or 7 picks.
Right, but then the argument, George, would be that they essentially might be having to add picks to get rid of a contract that they never needed to sign, which is kind of where I'm at, right? Like, I think you're right that, if OKC wanted to
make the alternative though? What's the alternative? Is trade someone of value instead. You got to trade someone of value.
But they probably don't want to do that.
But exactly right. So you have to make the money work somehow to get a trade like Giannis on the table. It has to be with someone.
Right, but
how about we steer the conversation towards the Heat and say, why haven't the Thunder ever be mentioned about Jimmy Butler? Because we think about doesn't it kind of feel the way the Thunder are built, right? Not a lot of veteran leadership, not a lot of veteran experience or playoff experience. We saw what happened to them last year in the playoffs, right? They kind of strike me as, and I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, the year that Philadelphia traded for Jimmy and then made their best run. It's funny that you can call it their best postseason run in 2 decades, but it was their best postseason run in 2 decades where Kawhi beat him at the buzzer in Game 7 in Toronto. This OKC team has the precipice kind of feel that Philly team had, not as far as like championships and longevity, but like they're in the same spot where you've seen what your team can do in the playoffs a little bit. You kind of need that go-getter. Jimmy's obviously way older now, but he kind of makes sense in that standpoint. And they have all those picks. I was talking to Harry about it, texting him a couple days ago, like, watch the Heat be the only team that can't get a boatload of firsts for their aging star or their
they've got leverage on the Heat too. They've got protections on our picks.
Exactly. Like, it would still be nice to get something back to recoup something, because how many picks did Portland get for Dame? How many picks did Brooklyn get for Kevin Durant? Like, these are aging stars that got bunch of first. Mikal fucking Bridges, who I know is way younger, sucks ass. How many picks
Dame got fuck all picks, though. Dame got like 2 first-round picks.
The Nets trade was crazy because then they ended up moving Mikal. So you're talking, I think it's 8 picks for Durant. The only thing I got confused about was that they did that swap this summer. We'll see how that turns out. But I think to kind of answer your question, LJ, it's just like, because the Heat they have one direction now.
Yep.
They're never thinking about the future. They're not planning at all. We talked about this right before the show starts, and we're not sure how bad the Drew Smith injury was tonight.
Which is funny and ironic that is a legitimate topic of discussion.
Yeah. And I have a source, which is basically just someone I know who's at the game, who thinks he saw him go to Spo and say, "I'm done." So it could be something in Achilles or something like that. So
which
you hope
sucks too.
Hope it's not anything that bad. But again, it's more like,
that was an ACL pop, by the way. That was an
ACL
injury.
Either one, George. Either one. That's a 9 to 12 months in injury.
Look, and he has all of my respect, because I was a former hater of Drew Smith. I genuinely thought, what the heck? Like, and it's not because of his game or who he is as a human being. It's the situation that the Miami Heat put him in. Okay. Like, I was expecting Dame, we got Drew Smith. Of course, you're going to fall short of expectation.
I know we got Josh Richardson, but
yeah, huge. I'm so happy with that.
They both wear number 0, so close enough.
I have a lot of respect for that guy to stick it out and to be genuinely one of our best players this year. So good on him. But from what I read something as well from a source before. Now, I joke about it, but it's a genuine source. There's a situation where they could still pay him and sign him to do rehab at their facilities.
Obviously, they did it last year. They'll do it again.
What in the hell are we thinking? Have we gone from being Miami Heat, the professional basketball organization, or are we a rehab facility?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what we are. Now, it's a scary idea that a guy who and I get it, it's in poor taste. He's just gone down. I feel bad for him. I really do. But it's scary. It's a scary thing to think about, that we might be giving a contract to a guy who's already had a major injury.
2 now.
And he's already had a major injury, and he's just had another one. Now, that shouldn't be the way to run an organization. If you want, slide him some cash under the table. I don't care. Write it off as a golf trip, but I don't give it. Just pay him, pay the man. Give him a fuck you like you. Something.
Usually I would agree with you, George. Be like, what the fuck are they doing? But at this point, this team has no aspirations, legitimately. Who cares who takes up a fucking roster spot? They're not winning anything.
This is my point, and the thing that I think I've been so frustrated with this team is essentially like the one thing they've been friggin' elite at is finding talent off the street and turning them into decent rotation players. Even guys like George was saying, even guys that we have been like, what are they doing? We don't see it. We don't see it. They end up becoming like, hey, this guy can play in an NBA rotation, or at least they can play for the Heat and make an impact because when they leave, it doesn't go as well elsewhere. But if you know that, and if you know you have that ability, and you know the next guy's coming through the door, because they always will, why aren't you moving them for something? And the pushback I always get is, oh, what's the second round pick going to do? What's this going to do? Have you guys not been watching the NBA, the market, the way things work? Having assets is necessary to make the moves to compete. It might take some time. It might not happen overnight. But if the Heat had thought like this since LeBron left, we'd be in a much different situation. And I have a good feeling we would have had a championship since then. But
you can't even. You're right. But you can't, like, not you. No one can argue that that's not the case. Like that's not an opinion. That's a fact. The fact of the matter is, the market goes across those picks. It uses those picks efficiently. The seconds are actually important, and the Miami Heat also think so as well. Thus, their trade of Thomas Bryant to the Indiana Pacers. So you can't sit there and tell me, like, no one can sit there and tell me that the first round pick that the Minnesota Timberwolves offered the Miami Heat for Max Strus before we went on that title run, like, wouldn't have been great. That's important. Those picks are crucial. Now, yeah, you lose Max Strus before your contending year. But the fact about it, you knew once you got to the finals, you were not beating any of the Big West teams. It was never happening. Like, not without some crazy instance, like when an injury to your best player, Jokic, goes down and Jamal Murray doesn't show up. You know what I mean? Like, short of that happening, you're not winning. So you have to take advantage of it's what being a businessman, it's what being elite at your job is recognizing the height of the market and what you can get for your players. Now, for the not just for the foreseeable future, but like in every facet of the sport, in every facet of the organization as a whole, you don't keep. Okay, like you see this guy's about to retire, right? You see that like your head trainer is about to retire, yeah. In 3 years' time. Now, someone else has just come through the door who's 10 times better, 10 times more qualified. Are you going to go stick with the guy that's got 3 years left, is also like at the end of his powers? Or are you going to go and try and get the other guy that's already walking through the door? It works on every level. You're not going to keep the guy for 3 fucking years when you can get someone that's going to be 10, 20 years into a sport that's going to be amazing throughout.
The other thing, George, and you brought up Thomas Bryant, which is such a good example of them just like Thomas Bryant is such a good example of them having no clue what they're doing anymore. So well, and I'll explain it like this, right? We all were like, he signed early in the offseason. We're like, what are they doing with Thomas Bryant? That's kind of weird, especially after they drafted Ware. You're like, all right, you're kind of thinking like most people like the Ware pick. I think I would say like it's a kind of a 65, 70% to 30. Like most people like the Ware pick. So what are you bringing Bryant back? Then you got him to, as a 1-year vet, he has a no trade clause. They got him to waive that while signing. So they kind of, you're kind of like, okay, at some point they're probably going to move him. But then 1, why sign him? 2, they traded him for a swap. So in all likelihood, it's not going to be much. I mean, so they essentially just signed him to give him a contract, maybe. Unless they thought he wasn't going to get signed anywhere else, and they did his agent a favor. But again, if we've talked about them using these spots to develop players, and we're always like, hey, we could use this spot for this guy, or you see a good free agent, like we all were kind of annoyed they didn't sign Kelly Oubre last year, who's become a pretty, even though they're not good this year, but he's become a good rotation piece for the Sixers. Why are we letting these guys why aren't we signing them? Why aren't we using them? Even if we signed to get Thomas Bryant, for example, wasn't he signed by the Lakers and then traded for 3 second-round picks to the Nuggets a few seasons ago?
Only to ride the bench throughout the entirety of the playoffs, yes.
But he's a champion. So
damn right he is.
So all I'm saying is if these are ways you can accumulate assets and use assets, even while you're in the tax, even while Sorry, even while you don't have too many draft picks. Why aren't we using this stuff? Like, why do we pretend we're such like the Heat are such a class act familial organization? Like, yo, you don't have to pay Duncan Robinson $90 million to show that you can.
This isn't Fast and Furious. Fuck family. I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
that's their problem. That's literally their problem. Is they're way too sentimental. Like,
get over it, man.
To Harry's point, exactly. They're way too fucking sentimental, and I'll honestly use that as a good segue to talk about the last thing that I really wanted to talk about tonight was honestly Spo, who is. Again, Harry, for those not watching on YouTube, yeah, Harry just fucking, like, you would have thought he just got jump scared or something because the way he just jumped out of his seat. Harry, go ahead. I'll let you take the stage real quick. I have a little spiel I do want to go on, but no, I need to know what that reaction was for, though.
Well, I'm really like, I had a discussion with someone today, or they always get, Harrison's being so negative. Spo has become one of the worst regular season coaches. Like, you could look at just the 2 losses in Detroit in overtime. One, he literally cost them the game. I've never seen a coach call a timeout that they didn't have. Obviously, the very famous one is Chris Webber calling that when he was, a young guy on Michigan and costing them that game. So that's the one that everyone knows about. Spo kind of admitted he like got a little hot and like forgot about it, which cannot happen. I've lost my cool at games before. I've never cost my team a game with my temper or how angry I got about a play. That was one. This last one in Detroit, up by 8 points in overtime, and you lose that game. How? The Magic game, again, like we talked at the beginning of the show, up by 22 in the fourth. How are you letting this happen? How are you not putting Ware out there to stop the bleeding? The guy was a plus 26. Like,
I have an exact answer for you for that too. It was because Duncan Robinson was being played at the 4. A player that is, I mean, you can't have a 6'6" player at 4. Remember back in like olden times NBA when there were actual positions and Spo was considered outlandish for playing 6'8" LeBron James at 4, and people were like, "That's way too small."
Yeah,
look where we're at now. Duncan fucking Robinson's playing the 4, and not only is he shorter than LeBron, he's not exactly as muscular, so it's not exactly going to work out.
And the other problem with Spo and what's kind of happening is, you can want to tinker. You don't have to. You don't really have to have your playoff rotation set until March. To be honest, like you can kind of tinker. But the problem is the tinkering
play-in rotation.
It's correct. The tinkering has absolutely cost them games. This is never going to be a team that can, and not just them, but there's just not going to be a team that's winning without having home court in the postseason. They're just not. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. And I know that he made the run, but this is not happening. And so I don't know what he needs. Spo has not been good since he signed the extension. There's obviously stuff going on in his personal life that we don't need to get into, but it just has not been
smoke.
It's just not been the guy I know and love. And I don't know if he needs time off. I don't know if he needs, something else. I don't know if they need a new GM. I don't know if they need a new voice in there or new coaches to kind of say, Spo, this is not going well, but this needs to be fixed. He is legitimately costing them games and at a high number. This is not like, oh yeah, that was a very unfortunate game. It was a one-off. This is happening every week.
There's been at least 5 or 6 notable games you can point to being like, this is a determining factor on why they lost the game.
5 to 6 games, which is every season, is going to be the difference between being a playoff team and being a 4 or 5 seed.
Exactly. And before George goes, I just wanted to go on my Spo spiel here because I'd written some stuff down that I think he's having his worst season since pre-LeBron. I know in the past we've had issues with his rotations and stuff, but I mean this year they've been abysmal again this year, man. Like I know they're shorthanded again too, and it was the Brooklyn Nets or it was the Orlando Magic, but like I said, the reason that they collapsed in that fourth quarter to scoring 8 points is because he wouldn't play Kel'el Ware, and it doesn't make sense why you're not going to play your first-round rookie because Spo's whole thing of he hasn't earned the minutes. Jaime Jaquez is in his second fucking year, and he earned the minutes off rip. Is it because he was a fossil coming out of college? College ball ain't NBA ball, big dog. Like there is no correlation between the two. You cannot just hand these minutes over. What has Duncan done to earn his minutes? What has Pele Larson done to earn his minutes? Like, I don't understand the stubbornness when you see this team has significant juice when Ware is in there. It is evident. Almost instantaneously on the defensive end, he has better hands than Bam. So when Tyler's throwing those lobs, he's catching them and putting them down at a way higher clip than Bam does. And that's not shade at Bam. That's just a pro of having a 7+ athletic foot center. Bam is athletic too, obviously, but he's not Khalil Ware when it comes to catching the ball and putting it in the basket off of an oop. Because I think Tyler had like 4 or 5 of them tonight to Khalil, not to mention the couple the other night. And just the spark he brings on defense. If you're going to take minutes away from somebody, because you would say, well, who's Spo going to take off the floor? Jaime fucking Jaquez, who has been having an astronomically terrible season.
Shooting 41%.
Not even that, George. I have
8.2 points a game.
Even crazier fucking stat than that. If you're going to say, well, LJ, why would you take a shooter off the floor to put Khalil out there? Well, I'm very happy that you asked that hypothetical question because Jaime Jaquez Jr. is shooting a nice, cool 23% from 3. He's not stretching the floor. He's not playing defense the way that Khalil's going to play defense. You know why Jaime got minutes last year? To answer my earlier question, what he did to deserve those? He was cutting without the basketball. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is not cutting without the basketball this year. He's not making the shots. He is a ball-dominant type of player, which is why he filled in good for Jimmy. But in Tyler's new ball-dominant role, you need someone else off ball. Jaime's game does not work if he cannot actually touch the ball continuously in a possession or with across possessions. If you're asking him to post out in the corner, this is what you get. He can't get into a rhythm. He doesn't play effectively. Khalil Ware doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective, especially on defense. So it doesn't make sense to me why you're going to not play someone who is significantly better for what you're trying to currently run, especially with Bam not being great this year on defense, which is an anomaly of itself. But play Bam and Ware together. You're playing Bam and Jaime. That shit doesn't work. Khalil's not going to be any worse shooting the 3 ball than Jaime has been. And you're going to get better cutting, or not better cutting. You'll get better lobs, more lob opportunities. And Khalil can still shoot. Teams are going to grow out, and I meant to say go, but grow works too. They'll grow to learn his game to the point where they're going to respect his shot. And then you're going to get way better defense with fucking Khalil Ware out there too. So I just... suppose
I know it didn't work last time either. And I know it didn't work last time when we had 2 bigs on the ground, but this is different. This will be different.
Way different. This isn't your Myers Leonard or Thomas Bryant.
You've got a different version of Bam out there. You need every single thing that we've spoken about today. Yeah. It's like your bookkeeper. It's like your bookie. You're always going to go back to your bookie. All right. Everything always comes back to the big dog. Your front office, your Miami Heat front office is failing miserably. They're failing Bam. They're failing the team in general. They're failing the little guys. They're failing Spo. They're failing you, the fans. That's what they're doing. They're actively declining and failing. And if you want to go into specifics, I'm not going to. We don't have the time for that. Okay? But they're failing astronomical proportions at the moment. And the way I look at it, when you look at someone like Khalil Ware, who can, in of himself, isn't anything spectacular. Yeah, not just yet. Isn't anything like outlandishly like, oh my God, this is the next Giannis, or oh my God, this is Larry Markkinen, in 2 years' time. This is a guy who's new, who's fresh, who doesn't know what it's like to have a broken soul because Pat Riley wants to play idiots. Wants to pay idiots. I look at this team, I look at a player like Khalil Ware. It makes so much sense to me that guy just injects life into every facet of this. He did it with Tyler today with catching lobs. If you put him in the game, he can then take some opportunity, and he takes the opportunity to play in the paint a bit more, thus giving Bam more space to operate on the wings, doing what he needs to do. Give him something new, because you've given him the same fucking job for 5 years now, where it's go and screen for people and play elite defense and shut the fuck up. That's your job. They're calling him a bitch, and they're saying enjoy your time in the sun. That's what they're saying. Go and have fun. But you're doing this if you like it or not. Give him something new to work towards. It's not hard. And it shouldn't be this like anger inducing of a conversation to have. Something's not working. Let's try something new. Oh no, you want to go and pay Thomas Bryant. Okay, no worries. Thomas Bryant's gone. Immediately after that, Kalal should see a boost in minutes. And he did. And guess what it's led to? Fun. Exciting.
Wait,
something
George,
different.
did you just say Miami Heat basketball has been fun with Kalal on the floor?
I know. He caught a lob and he slammed it through the big hoop. And I was like, oh my God, this is cool. That's fun. You know what you need to go do next? Get a fucking playmaking point guard, please.
That's not happening. We know that's not happening.
Yeah, but there's plenty. There's plenty of them.
And they could have had
They're everywhere. And there's teams who are in excess of those type of players. Now,
De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox.
No, 10-game losing streak. No,
I still want him.
No, it's not. It's not 10. It's not 10.
It's bad though.
It's still bad. They're like, I think they're like 5-10 or like 5-10 over the last 15 or something like that. Something crazy. It's not good, especially when you go and pay DeMar DeRozan to go be that guy. And all he's done is he's still offensive production away from DeMontis Sabonis and Keegan Murray, who should have been a lot more like you shouldn't have done anything with that organization, that roster, until you can afford to go and package Monk, package Keon Ellis, package some players and picks to go get a genuine, like, good scoring player. Go get Cam Thomas if you want. You don't go get a cutting small forward who doesn't really play defense. He's also on his last legs. But I can't talk because I support the Miami Heat, who make even more dumb mistakes and even more on a regular basis. So it is what and the funny thing is, it's not like, oh, this is new. This is new. Like, we look at this organization, and we've just realized they've been doing this thing. Go look at any basement stream over the last 2 years. Go look at any tweet from the last 4 years, 3 years. People have been saying it, but instead of seeing out the smoke, you've seen it too late. Okay. You now have stage 96 fucking Pat Riley disease, and it's incurable. Okay, but there's always hope. There's hope out there. It's called a young GM.
If you choose to look for the hope, I'm sure you can find it. Harry, bring us home. What are your thoughts on where or whatever you want to close on, and then I'll sign us off for the last time of 2024. I can say that confidently.
Yeah, we're not. This is the last one of the year by far. Definitely.
Enjoy it while you got it.
Yeah, I just think it's obvious that he's giving them the spark they need. And here's my thought with the rookies. It's very different than probably what Spo feels. When you are not going to compete, and if we're being honest, if you gave everyone on the Heat Truth Serum, they're not in anyone's class to compete this season. This guy should be playing 15 to 20 minutes a game. What do you have to lose? If he plays bad, he'll figure it out. If he plays great, maybe he's helping the team. George says maybe it's more fun. He's a lob threat that the Heat haven't had in a really long time. He moves well for a guy of his size. You hope that he can kind of figure out more of the outside shot. I know that was something they were hoping he could figure out because that would make more sense playing with Bam. But if you're going to tinker, if you're going to do this stuff, why not play the young, exciting guy that people want to see and could possibly help the team win? What is the downside? And, they say, oh, he's, they see more than us. They see it in practice, whatever. Guys, I don't think we know more than the coaches, but I think we have less of a real biased perspective where we can make more objective decisions. Like, it's not our money. So we're not upset if a guy's getting paid a lot and not doing well. And, we're trying to get them to improve their trade value or whatever the thing is. Like, let's just try to, if they're trying to win, put them out there and see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, like, maybe you look to make an additional move, or maybe he flashes and his value's high. Like, I'm not attached to anyone on this team. Okay. There's not one person on this team I'm like, they're untradeable. Okay, we've had that discussion before. There's nobody on this team that you would say, I don't care what anyone offers me, I'm not moving them. So,
who's our assistant coach?
Say it again.
Who's our assistant coach?
There's
the guy with the slick back.
Chris Quinn.
Chris Quinn? He's the only one. I like Chris Quinn.
I would too, but I think he's too much of a yes man.
I would trade Chris Quinn tomorrow for a bag of chips, man. Everyone's tradable, okay? This untouchable stuff is stupid, and let's move away from it, okay? As much as we like Bam and how he's played, he's not untouchable. As much joy as Jimmy's brought in his run with the Heat, we should move him before he leaves for nothing or it becomes, kind of an awkward situation. Tyler, they should have moved years ago. If Ware plays well and a team calls and it makes sense for the team, I'm moving him. Like, figure out how to move this forward. We've been stuck in what now feels like quicksand for 6 years. We're trying to move and we're just sinking further and further away from where we need to be. This needs to be the end of this build. It needs to die. We need to bury it, and we all need to move forward so we can discuss something different. I don't even know if it's going to be more exciting or not with the way they play, but just we all need something different for 2025 and beyond.
I think that's a phenomenal place to end it. That's how we end 2024. The Miami Heat are, what are they, 15 and 14? Does anybody know? Am I pulling that number out of my ass?
13, but
14 and 13. I know they're one above 500 now. I know that. But all right. Thank you guys for joining us. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy other things outside of watching Miami Heat basketball. And if you're Dolphin fans, I strongly suggest you take that last sentence really to heart, because it's tough out there. It's and you Miami Hurricane fans, Jesus Christ. Okay. Love you guys. Take care. Be good people. Every starting player for the Miami Heat tonight that played significant minutes went positive. Jaime Jaquez went -8. Take care. Be good people.
Need a stop and a rebound. Fournier for 3.
Oh, my. That was the Random Scrub Heat podcast.